I took advantage of his gratitude and tricked the amnesiac Pei Jian into becoming my husband. He scolded me for being shameless, yet still nodded with a flushed face. The wedding dress was only half finished when Pei Jian regained his memory. I packed my little bundle and happily followed him home. But the Pei family was a prominent household. Pei Jian's mother disliked me, and the servants of the Pei manor looked down on me. Even Pei Jian seemed like a changed man. Yunye is nothing but a country bumpkin. Taking her as a concubine is enough to repay her life-saving kindness. A concubine? But I won't be a concubine. I found Pei Jian's mother and asked her for 500 taels of silver. Since Pei Jian couldn't become my husband, I might as well use this money to buy one instead. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. Li Tsuehua from the neighboring village bought her husband. She spent 8 taels of silver and got herself a tall, sturdy man who could both wash clothes and cook, as well as work in the fields. I was so envious that I wanted to follow Tsuehua's example and buy a husband too, but after rummaging through the house for half the day, all I could scrape together were a few copper coins from the stove hole. Every time I think of this, I feel a pang of regret. Are you even listening to me? A low reprimand pulled my thoughts back. The noblewoman, dressed in splendid robes, sat high in the hall, her gaze filled with disdainful contempt. The old wet nurse beside her spoke up to soothe her. Don't be angry, madam, she's just a country bumpkin. How would she know anything about rules and propriety? As she spoke, she tilted her head back, looking at me with disdain. Yunye, you just said that if we gave you 500 taels, you would leave the Pei manor and never bother the young master again. Is that true? I nodded. Of course it's true. The old matron snorted coldly and leaned toward the noblewoman's ear as if boasting of her merit. Madam's judgment was indeed correct. This girl is clearly money-grubbing. After all the young master begged you, insisting on taking her as his concubine. Look at her, not an ounce of flesh on her body, yet she's got some vixen's tricks up her sleeve. I quickly waved my hands in protest. You've misunderstood, I don't become anyone's concubine. The old matron snorted dismissively. As if you'd even qualify. Rumors say you took advantage of the young master's amnesia to force him into marriage by playing the gratitude card. Who are you trying to fool now? Not a concubine. Ha! Our Pei family has been distinguished for generations. Even concubines must be carefully chosen from respectable families. With your lowly origins, you're not even fit to touch the threshold of our Pei manor. Don't think I can't see through your little scheme. You're just taking advantage of saving the young master's life to put on airs here, trying to seek more benefits, aren't you? Hearing this, I got angry. What I want has been made very clear just now, just 500 taels. If you're willing to give it, then give it. If not, just say so directly. You do know I'm your young master's savior, don't you? Is this how you humiliate your own master's benefactor? What kind of upright generation, who'd bother to cross your threshold? You. The old nanny's hands trembled with anger. No upbringing whatsoever, simply vulgar. I haven't even said the more vulgar things yet. If you think your young master's life isn't worth 500 taels, then I don't need the money, but you must compensate me for the herbs and food I used on him. That's what I deserve. The old nurse wanted to scold further, but the noblewoman raised her hand to stop her. You jest, miss. How could our Pei family be so ungrateful? The noblewoman touched the golden hairpin on her head, her lips curling into a smile laced with scornful mockery. It's just that I've seen too many greedy, social climbing individuals, so I can't help but be somewhat guarded. If I've offended you, young lady, please don't take it to heart. As she spoke, she waved her hand, and the old maidservant reluctantly handed over a 500-tael silver note. Jian promised to marry you when he lost his memory, though it wasn't his true intention. He's a man of his word. After returning, he even mentioned taking you as a concubine to me. Fortunately, the young lady is sensible. Now that you've taken the money, don't forget what you promised. I took the banknote and examined it carefully before tucking it into my robe. Don't worry, Yunye, always keep my word. With that, I turned and walked out. When I reached the door, I paused, turning to glance at the old matron who was rolling her eyes at me. And besides, it's not that I'm unworthy of Pei Jian, it's Pei Jian who's unworthy of me. Not that I'm being arrogant. In our village, Pei Jian truly isn't worthy of me. I lost my father at 8, my mother at 9, and at 10 I chased off my uncle and aunt who came to seize our house and land with a stick. I can wash clothes, cook meals, weave cloth, and embroider. The sweet potatoes I grow are big and sweet. I know quite a few characters and often help the old lady next door write letters to her grandson who's gone off to war. I also knew how to identify herbs on the mountain, and whenever I had free time, I would dig them up and sell them for money. When I found Pei Jian, he was covered in blood. Aunt Li next door earnestly advised, "Yun, don't waste your effort, this person probably won't make it." I reached out and wiped the dirt from Pei Jian's face, staring at that handsome face. And my heart stirred. Give it a try, what if he pulls through? I used my treasured old ginseng to keep him alive, then called in the village barefoot doctor. One dose of premium herbal medicine after another was forced down his throat. To care for him, I didn't dare sleep soundly at night, even giving up my bed to sleep on a makeshift pallet beside him. Years of savings vanished in an instant, but fortunately, Pei Jian finally woke up, but he had forgotten everything, even his own name. Aunt Li thought it wasn't worth it for me. "Look, you've spent all your savings, and in the end, you've saved a fool. Yun girl, you've lost big," I chuckled. "As long as he's alive, that's all that matters." Pei Jian spoke very little, always sitting silently by the door, his handsome face wearing a faint look of confusion, ignoring anyone who tried to talk to him. Only when seeing me would a faint smile ripple at the corners of his lips, his deep pupils shimmering with dark, luminous light. "Yunya, you're back," as if he had been sitting there specifically waiting for me. I was hooked like a gaping fish. Aunt Li, exasperated, said, "Look at you, so spineless. This fool looks so delicate, can't even hold a hoe. He's clearly a pampered scholar who's never done a day of hard labor. He has no skills whatsoever. How could he be worthy of you? Just because he has a pretty face, is that reason enough to cherish him so much? If you ask me, Butcher Zhong is more suitable for you. He's good at making money and willing to work hard. If you marry him, you'll have more meat than you can eat." I kept chuckling. Scholars are good, scholars are great, scholars are educated. As for those chores, who does them doesn't matter. I, Yunya, have plenty of strength. Butcher Zhong is a decent man, but he goes 10 days to half a month without bathing. I really can't stand it. I didn't take Aunt Li's words to heart, but Pei Jian took them seriously. He stayed silent all evening, and the next morning got up early to cook, but the pot burned dry, the rice scorched, leaving him covered in soot with several large holes burned in his clothes. Pei Jian stood awkwardly to the side, his voice full of self-reproach. "I'm sorry, Yunya, you saved me. Yet I can't even help properly and just make more trouble for you." Oh, that pitiful look of his, it just broke my heart. I tugged at my sleeve to wipe the dust from his face, whispering softly, it's all right, you don't need to do anything, if you really feel bad about it." Pei Jian's dark, gleaming eyes fixed on me, as if waiting for what I would say next. A mischievous impulse seized me, and I blurted out, "How about you pledge yourself to me in marriage?" Pei Jian blushed and ran away like a shy bride. A strange excitement rose in my heart, somewhat perverse. That night, Pei Jian came to me with his quilt in his arms. "Yun Ye, let's switch places. My injuries are almost healed. How can I let you keep sleeping on the floor?" I replied with practiced ease. "Why not pledge yourself to me instead? That way, we can both sleep in the bed." Pei Jian froze for a moment, then ran away again. Hihi, how amusing. After that, whenever Pei Jian tried to strike up a conversation with me, I'd immediately demand he pledge himself to me in marriage. Pei Jian wore a stern expression, his brows furrowed with utmost seriousness. "Yun Ye, you're a girl, how can you keep saying such things so casually?" He turned his head, avoiding my gaze, but the tips of his ears were bright red. "Hey, I don't care, I'm just going to say it." Butcher Zhong came looking for me again. He carried the meat. Hoping to win another chance for himself, he said his butcher shop business was getting better and better, and he was preparing to rent a larger storefront in town. Once he saved enough money, he would buy a small courtyard. "Sister Yun Ye," Butcher Zhong scratched his head, "I'm not good with words. But if you're willing to marry me, you won't have to do any work. I promise to give you a good life." I felt overwhelmed and, with great effort, carefully chose my words. Finally managing to politely decline him after a long string of evasive excuses, I watched Butcher Zhong leave, and as I turned around, I saw Pei Xian standing behind the door, staring at me ominously. He propped himself against the door with one hand, his fingers almost tearing at the doorframe. Before I could speak, he suddenly let out a low HMPH, turned his back, and ignored me. That evening, after I'd cooked dinner, Pei Xian stared at the meat in his bowl, not touching his chopsticks. "What's wrong now, my dear young master?" Pei Xian's voice was icy cold. "You held his hand today, eh?" "Oh," he meant Butcher Zhong. "What hand-holding? I was stuffing money into his hand. We can't just take his meat for free, can we?" Pei Xian pressed his lips together before finally taking a bite of the meat. "Yunye, should I go out and earn money too? I already told you, you don't have to do anything." I ate my meal heartily. "I'm not short on money, just a husband. Why don't you offer yourself to me?" I had originally intended to say that to tease him and lighten the mood. I expected Pei Xian to scold me again with a stern face for being shameless, but after a long wait, I heard him softly hum, I nearly choked on my mouthful of food before I could even swallow. "What did you say, marry me?" Pei Xian's face turned red as he avoided my gaze. I said yes. I was so overjoyed I couldn't sleep all night. Clutching my money jar while counting my meager savings, "Tomorrow I must go to town early to buy several yards of red fabric. I'll make my own wedding dress, embroider the red bridal veil, and get the finest quilts too. How many banquet tables should we prepare? If possible, we should also get a bigger bed. And that leaky roof definitely needs proper repairs." As I thought about it, my eyes grew red and teary. "Father, Mother, your daughter is getting married. I will have a home again, a family. And in the future, flesh and blood kin of my own. I will become a parent too. Don't worry, your daughter is strong and capable, and I'll make sure life is full and prosperous." I thought to myself, little did I know that fate is decreed by heaven, and in this world, nothing ever goes quite as one wishes. On the 5th day of my stay at the Pei residence, I decided to leave. The bundle was still the same one I had carried when I arrived, patched and worn. The difference was that it now contained 500 taels in silver notes. I sat by the door, waiting for dawn. The grey mist dispersed, revealing Pei Xian, whom I hadn't seen in a long time. He looked somewhat weary, yet managed to force a smile when he saw me, sitting wordlessly beside me on the doorstep. After a long silence, Pei Xian finally noticed the bundle I had placed by my side. Frowning with unease, he asked, "Yunye, why did you take this out?" "Throw it away," I replied. I wasn't lying. Now that I had money, those old things really should be discarded. Pei Xian let out a relieved sigh. "Good, it's better to throw them away. I'll have someone bring brocade to make you new clothes, and gold and silver hairpins too. You can have whatever style you want. Once we're married," his voice softened. "Once we're married, everything will be better." His words sounded more like he was comforting himself. But, was this a marriage, or taking a concubine? I didn't expose him. After another stretch of silence, Pei Xian spoke again. "Yunya, I need to go on a long journey." "Alright, aren't you going to ask where I'm going?" "Does it matter?" "It doesn't." Pei Xian smiled. "What matters is that when I return, we can get married." Actually, I knew he was taking his cousin, who had been recuperating at the Pei family home, back to Jiangnan, and while there, he would discuss their marriage. Marrying his cousin was the condition for taking me as a concubine. I had known all of this ever since I asked Pei Xian's mother for money. "Will you stay here obediently and wait for me to come back?" "Okay." Pei Xian looked at me with a serious and eager expression, as if waiting for a promise from me. Dawn broke. Clutching my bundle, I smiled at him. "Pei Xian, may you have a smooth journey. Have a safe journey, but I won't wait for you anymore." After Pei Xian set off, I also boarded the carriage back to my hometown. The carriage rocked and swayed, and in a daze, it reminded me of the journey here. When I first learned that Pei Xian had regained his memories, I was truly happy for him. At that time, my wedding dress was only half finished. One morning when I woke up, Pei Xian's gaze toward me seemed somewhat unusual. His once bright, dark eyes had dimmed considerably. He looked at me quietly for a long time before finally speaking. "Yunya, I have regained my memories." It turned out he wasn't a fool after all. There were still loved ones far away who worried and cared for him. Pei Xian's family would now be my family too. Great, the house is even livelier now. I was so busy slaughtering chickens and ducks that I didn't notice Pei Jian's tightly furrowed brows or the deep, unshakable sorrow in his eyes when he looked at me. Yunya. Pei Jian surveyed the mess on the ground with an inscrutable expression. You didn't need to prepare all this. I kept plucking the chicken feathers without even looking up. How could I not? I can't possibly go empty-handed when visiting your family for the first time. As I spoke, I suddenly remembered something and hurried into the house, rummaging beneath the cabinet to retrieve the medicinal herbs I had treasured for so long. I couldn't bear to sell any of these. They'll be perfect to bring back and nourish our parents' health. Pei Jian opened his mouth to speak, but upon seeing my utterly expectant gaze, he sighed softly and ultimately said nothing. I packed the bulging little bundle with glee and followed Pei Jian home in high spirits. I nervously wondered, what if Pei Jian's family doesn't like me? No way, no way. Granny says I'm sweet and likable. Auntie Lee says I'm diligent and capable. Everyone in the neighboring villages always has good things to say about me. I patted my little heart reassuringly. Little Yunya, don't be afraid, no one could possibly dislike you. Yet it wasn't until I stood before the imposing mansion gates that I belatedly realized what Pei Jian's hesitant silence along the journey had meant. I'd never seen such a grand residence before. Not even the wealthiest squire's manor in our old town could compare to 1/10 of this. Vermilion doors carved with exquisite patterns stood before me, flanked by 2 majestic stone lions radiating power and dignity. The gold-lacquered plaque of the Pei Manor hung high above, inexplicably instilling a sense of timidity in one's heart. Oh no, Pei Jian, he really does seem to be a young master. The Pei family, having received the news, had been eagerly awaiting our arrival at the entrance. As soon as we alighted from the carriage, maids and servants swarmed us like a tide, separating Pei Jian and me. In the chaos, someone shoved me, someone bumped into me, and someone stepped on my foot. Before I could even cry out in pain, I was pushed aside, helplessly watching Pei Jian being swept forward by the crowd. Several times, he turned back to look for me, but before his gaze could meet mine, it was immediately blocked by others. Pei Jian was probably going to see his parents. I was led to a quiet side room, where several maids unceremoniously opened my luggage, pulling out its contents and inspecting each item. The head matron raised an eyebrow, scrutinizing me from head to toe. Don't be afraid, miss. It's the Pei family's rule that everything entering the estate must be thoroughly inspected. I asked, puzzled, didn't Pei Jian tell you who I am? The old nanny seemed displeased that I had addressed Pei Jian by his full name directly. Young master mentioned in his letter that you are an honored guest of our Pei residence, but proper decorum must still be observed. What if some ill-intentioned people try to sneak in unsavory items? We servants would have trouble explaining ourselves. Never mind, perhaps wealthy families simply have this many rules to follow. Just bear with it a little longer. Everything will be fine once we see Pei Jian. I watched helplessly as they threw my clothes on the floor. Only after the inspection was over could I pick up the scattered belongings. The matron questioned me further about every detail concerning Pei Jian's rescue and the months that followed down to the smallest particulars, as if she wanted to know how many slices of meat he ate with each meal. I answered patiently, one by one, until the matron finally nodded and left, leaving a few maids to keep an eye on me in the side hall. They wouldn't let me wander around, nor would they speak to me. I felt both aggrieved and uneasy, yet I forced myself to hold on. Just endure it a little longer, I thought. Once I see Pei Jian, everything will be fine. And so I sat there, waiting from afternoon till dusk, until the sun had set, but Pei Jian never came. Just as I was drifting off to sleep, someone suddenly touched my face. Yunya, opening my eyes, I saw Pei Jian bending over to gaze at me. He had transformed, now dressed in luxurious brocade robes, his long hair tied up with a jade crown, looking every bit the dashing nobleman, exuding an air of untouchable elegance. I froze for a moment, feeling a strange sense of unfamiliarity. Have you been waiting long? Pei Jian avoided my gaze, lowering his head to take my hand. I'll take you to meet mother. In the main hall, maids and servants stood all around, and the table was laden with exotic delicacies, each dish something I couldn't even name. The noblewoman seated at the head of the table lifted her eyelids. This must be Miss Yun. Yes, come, sit beside me. Pei Jian pulled me over to sit with him. The noblewoman took my hand, her eyes crinkling with laughter. Thanks to you for saving my son. You are the benefactor of our entire Pei household. She personally served me dishes and soup, her words full of warmth and familiarity. The maids and matrons who had just given me cold looks and rummaged through my belongings now wore smiles plastered across their faces. Like masks, I really couldn't bring myself to laugh. Miss Yun, please don't hesitate to ask for anything you need: gold, silver, treasures, houses, or fertile land. Our Pei family will do our utmost to repay you. The noblewoman stared at me unblinkingly, her eyes carrying some profound meaning I couldn't decipher. I quickly waved my hands. No need, no need. I didn't save him for these things. The air fell silent for a moment. The noblewoman suddenly released my hand, subtly wiping her palm with an embroidered handkerchief. Her smile faded, her expression turning distant. I'm tired. That's enough for today. I advise you to carefully consider what I just said. Then she turned to Pei Jian and added, since your disappearance, your cousin has been worried sick about you day and night, falling ill for quite some time. You should visit her more often. With that, she left supported by her maid. Pei Jian, I asked softly, can you no longer marry me? That's not it. Pei Jian looked somewhat flustered. Yun Ya, we will definitely get married. Mother just doesn't understand you yet. Give me some time, I'll handle everything. Trust me. Okay. I was placed in a remote side chamber. Maidens and matrons took turns watching me every day, not even letting me step beyond the courtyard gate. They threw the chickens and ducks I'd brought to the dogs, sighing with feigned regret. The mistress is fasting these days, abstaining from meat. What a shame to waste your kind gesture. He tossed the herbs I'd painstakingly gathered into the ditch again, sighing with feigned regret. You're from the countryside, miss, probably never seen anything of quality. Herbs of this grade are only fit for kindling in our Pei Manor's kitchen. Their mouths spoke apologies, but their eyes shone with undisguised contempt. I wanted to retort, to say it was precisely this grade that saved your young master's life, but the words reached my lips only to be swallowed back down. In the days that followed, I never saw Pei Jian again. Whenever I asked about him, everyone would reply impatiently, the young master is busy accompanying the young lady who has time to deal with you. The young lady, was she the cousin that Pei Jian's mother had mentioned? I knew nothing, sitting by the window every day, counting the leaves as they fell one by one from the tree outside. At night, I slept restlessly, dreaming that I had returned to the village. The sweet potatoes in the field were ripe, and I sat on the ridge, clutching one and taking big, eager bites. Lush green grass grew knee-high, and the fence was entwined with newly sprouted vines. Aunt Lee cheerfully gathered duck eggs along the riverbank, while the breeze carried the sweet fragrance of ripening citrus. I suddenly opened my eyes, staring at the square courtyard, letting cold sweat soak through my clothes. I don't like it here. I want to go home. I climbed over the wall and left the courtyard, intending to find Pei Jian. I'd overheard the maids mention before that he lived in the east. The Pei residence was exceptionally quiet at night. I skirted around the patrolling house guards, investigating each courtyard along the east side. As I passed the 7th window, I heard a female voice from within. Cousin, come quickly and look at my calligraphy. Hasn't it improved a lot? The next second, Pei Jian's faint voice echoed in the air. Not bad, but it's still far from cousin's calligraphy, the woman cooed, then paused before asking, and what about that country girl you brought back? Does she know how to read? Pei Jian seemed somewhat displeased. Why do you ask about her? I heard. Cousin knelt in the ancestral hall for 3 days, begging aunt to take her as a concubine. Why? Given her background, even if she did you a favor, a few hundred taels of silver would have been enough. Why bring her into the manor? Is she using her good deed to extort you, seeing the Pei family's wealth and clinging to you? Cousin, Pei Jian sighed softly, this matter has nothing to do with you, but I'm thinking of you too. Cousin, I've seen plenty of poor people like her. They're the most calculating and insatiably greedy. She must have realized your extraordinary status when she saved you, and that's why she tricked you into marrying her. Cousin, you absolutely must not be deceived by her innocent appearance. The surroundings were eerily quiet, the chirping of insects in the grass jarringly loud. After an unknown amount of time, Pei Jian's voice spoke again. Yunya is just a country woman with no one to rely on. Taking her as a concubine would be repaying her for saving my life. His voice was hoarse as he casually decided my fate. I was locked away in that gloomy courtyard, with no one ever asking for my opinion, a concubine. But I won't be one. Even if born into humble origins, I would never become someone's concubine. I turned around to go find Pei Jian's mother. She had previously asked me what I wanted. For saving my life, 500 taels of silver would suffice. Aunt Li started nagging me again. Yun, I told you that pretty boy wasn't reliable. But you wouldn't listen. Now look, you're heartbroken, aren't you? Good thing you woke up in time. Just come back and live your life properly. But you just sent off one big fool, and now you've brought back another one. Oh my, Auntie doesn't even want to scold you. The idiot Aunt Li spoke of was named Jiang, whom I bought for 20 taels of silver from a Persian merchant. That merchant was from Persia and had many foreign slaves. Jiang was the only Han Chinese among them. When I saw him, he was confined in a not-so-spacious wooden cage, his tall frame compressed, making even sitting look cramped. He wore tattered hemp clothes, his hair was disheveled, and his strong arms were covered in deep and shallow whip marks. I stood outside the cage, staring at him for a while. He seemed to sense my gaze, his eyelashes fluttering open to reveal sharp, piercing eyes. Like a beast lurking in the darkness, lust is a sickness that needs to be cured. But I feel like my particular affliction is beyond remedy. Seeing my interest, the merchant from who immediately stepped forward to promote his wares. He said Jiang was originally a captive of the Xiongnu. Earlier this year, our dynasty dealt a crushing defeat to the Xiongnu, who, to show their sincerity, both paid tribute and released our captives. But Jiang was unlucky. Before being released, he had already been sold to a Hu merchant. When I heard this, I didn't even haggle and immediately took out 20 taels of silver to buy him. The Hu merchant was ruthless. To prevent slaves from escaping or rebelling, he fed them drugs daily to restrict their movement. Jiang didn't know if he had taken too much medicine, but he seemed a bit dazed and slow to react. I seized the opportunity to brainwash him. I bought you, so from now on you belong to me. Understand? Jiang's voice was deep and pleasant. Understood. You must obey me. If I tell you to go east, you absolutely cannot go west. Got it? I know. What would you do if someone bullied me? Beat them up? What should you call me? Darling, I nodded in satisfaction, reaching out to poke his rock-hard arm muscles. Hey, so nice, just looking at him. I can tell he'll help me dig up lots and lots of sweet potatoes. Jiang can do anything. Every morning when I open my eyes, the table is already covered with steaming hot meat buns. The house is spotless. Even the leaky roof has been fixed. Jiang returns from the riverbank carrying freshly washed clothes, eats with me, then heads back to work in the fields, turning soil, weeding, watering. His movements are neat and efficient. I sat under the big tree, happily munching on sweet potatoes. Whenever we went into the mountains, Jiang always accompanied me. I'd gather herbs while he hunted game. And he never failed to bring back plenty of pheasants and hares. I gave some to Granny and Aunt Li. Aunt Li looked thoroughly pleased, praising him over and over, and finally stopped calling him that half-wit. Jiang often has nightmares at night. Sometimes I'm startled awake by his heavy breathing. Seeing his pale face covered in fine beads of sweat on his forehead, he seems to be dreaming of painful past experiences, his bony fingers clenched so tightly they almost draw blood. He must have been a soldier on the battlefield before, facing slaughter and bloodshed every day. After being captured, he must have endured considerable torment, not to mention later being sold to Hu merchants and becoming a slave. My heart ached unbearably, and I reached out to wake him. But Jiang suddenly grabbed my wrist with such force that it felt like he might crush my bones. The pain brought tears to my eyes, only to see Jiang abruptly open his dark pupils flashing with intense murderous intent. I was frozen in fright. Jiang instantly came to his senses, quickly released my hand, and sat up in a fluster. Did I hurt you, my lady? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I thought he wanted to touch me but didn't dare. Clumsily wiping the tears from the corner of my eye. Don't cry, I was wrong. Hit me if you want. Okay. Without a word, under Jiang's uneasy gaze, I leaned in and gently embraced him. Jiang, don't be afraid. No one will hurt you again. I gently patted the man's stiff back. I'll always be with you. The room was silent, while the mountain wind howled outside. Ajiang listened to his own increasingly clear, uncontrollable heartbeat, slowly reached out, and hugged her back, the tip of his nose filled with a faint sweetness. He leaned against her shoulder and finally had a good night's sleep. After that day, I didn't let Ajiang sleep on the floor anymore. I gave him half of my bed. And with him sleeping beside me, he did become much more settled, rarely having nightmares anymore. Only, my sleeping posture isn't great, and sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night to find my leg draped over his waist. Ajiang lay there with his eyes wide open, his body stiff as a board, the tips of his ears so red they seemed about to bleed. I awkwardly lifted my leg off him. Sorry, did I hurt you? Ajiang pulled the blanket over his legs, his voice hoarse as if scraped by sand. No. It didn't hurt. Annoyed with myself, I wrapped myself up tightly to prevent such incidents from happening again. But the truth was it didn't help at all. When I woke up the next morning, not only were my legs wrapped around his waist, but my arms had also entangled his neck like an octopus. Since we were already sharing a bed, it was about time to bring up the matter of marriage. I took out the half-finished wedding dress I'd been working on and continued sewing. Grandma made her signature sweet cakes, while Aunt Lee enthusiastically showed me various embroidery patterns. The only thing was, Ajiang had been leaving early and returning late recently. Who knows what he's been busy with. At night, as I sewed the final stitch of my wedding dress and lifted my head, I saw Ajiang leaning against the window frame, propping his chin as he watched me. Caught in the act, he grinned, flashing a row of white teeth, and swung his long legs over the windowsill to climb inside. A brocade box appeared in his hand. Darling, Ajiang pulled a stool close and sat before me, his eyes brimming with anticipation. Won't you open it? I opened it as instructed, and inside the box lay a pearl the size of a stone, perfectly round and full, emitting a lustrous, pearly white glow. It looked incredibly valuable at first glance. I widened my eyes. Where did you get it? I hunted a white fox in the mountains and bought it with the money from its pelt. This pearl would look beautiful if it were set in your phoenix coronet. My lady, I was stunned. So you've been gone for days because you went hunting? Ajiang didn't deny it. He reached out, pinched my cheek, and softly asked, do you like it? I looked at the pearl, and in a daze, I felt as if I, too, was being cherished and held dear by someone. I really like it. Ajiang went hunting in the mountains again, and with nothing else to do, I took the stockpiled herbs from home to sell in town. But the usually bustling market was unusually quiet today. After selling the herbs, I sat in the inn eating wontons when I overheard the people at the table behind me whispering, did you hear? Another person died in the south of the city last night. Really? Someone just died in the north of the city a few days ago. What's going on? A lot of new faces have shown up in town recently. I bet they're looking for someone. I have a nephew who works in the barracks. I heard they're looking for young Marquis Wei. Young Marquis Wei. Didn't he die in battle when he defeated the Huns late last year? Yeah, we even said that young Marquis Wei was a young hero, leading 500 elite soldiers to raid the enemy camp at night, directly taking out the Huns' stronghold, which turned the tide of the battle. MPH. Doesn't that make it even stranger? Since he was so formidable, how could he have died so easily? I heard there was a traitor in the military camp. Someone colluded with the Huns and betrayed young Marquis Wei, which is why he went missing. Now he's neither seen alive nor found dead. Who knows if he's truly dead or alive? Maybe he's lucky and survived. You're right. The two people who died recently were indeed young men around the same age as Marquis Wei's son. With that, the few of them sighed in dismay. I listened, my heart pounding, unable to even eat my wontons. I need to hurry back and tell Ajiang that it's not safe outside these days, so he shouldn't go out if there's no need. After only a few steps, I heard the people at that table speak again. Oh, what was that young Marquis Wei's name again? His surname is Wei, his given name is Zhao, and his courtesy name is Wu Jiang. Wei Wu Jiang. I froze in place, a premonition of ill omen rising in my heart. By the time I got home, darkness had already fallen. The further I walked, the more I felt something was amiss. It was too quiet all around, not even the chirp of an insect. The moment I pushed the door open, the cold glint of a blade flashed before my eyes. At the same time, a strong arm wrapped around my waist. deftly pulling me away from the approaching knife tip. When I came to my senses, I saw several figures in black had appeared in the courtyard. I knew not when. Ajiang held me, his gaze sweeping over them with a chilling intensity, his eyes filled with a terrifying killing intent. The leading figure in black sneered, "Young Marquis Wei, you certainly made us search for you." Ajiang ignored him, turning to me with a gentle voice, "Wife, you go inside and wait for me." My fingers trembled as I clutched his sleeve tightly. "You, don't die." Ajiang's eyes crinkled with a smile. "Don't worry, wife spent money to buy me. I wouldn't bear to let your money go to waste." I went inside and closed the door, leaving only the jarring sound of clashing blades in my ears. My mind was blank, unable to think. Subconsciously, I rummaged through the box for scissors, then sat by the table, slowly waiting. After an unknown amount of time, the door creaked open a sliver. The moment I saw Ajiang, tears gushed out as if a floodgate had opened. Seeing this, Ajiang panicked, rushing over to clumsily wipe away my tears. "What's wrong? Scared, or hurt somewhere?" He checked my body up and down. I shrieked, "Blood! You have blood on you. Don't be afraid, my dear. This isn't my blood." Half believing, half doubting, I mimicked him, checking him over and over again. After confirming he wasn't injured, I finally felt relieved. Countless questions swirled in my mind, yet I didn't know where to begin asking. Why did he hide things from me? Was his kindness toward me also fake? Does he have a cousin at home too? What if his mother also wants me to be a concubine? How much should I ask for this time? 300 taels shouldn't be considered too greedy, right? Ajiang gently stroked my cheek with his fingertip. "What's my lady thinking about?" I came to my senses and quickly shook my head. "No, my lady. Will you come back to Qingju with me?" I looked at him, thought for a moment, and then asked seriously, "Can you come up with 300 taels of silver? No matter how much my lady desires, it shall be yours." "All right, I'll go back with you." I sniffled. "Don't forget to bring those farm eggs from home." Ajiang curled his lips in a smile. "As you command, young Marquis Wei, surnamed Wei, given name Zhao, courtesy name Wu Jiang, was born in Shangjing. He joined the army at 15 and achieved numerous military merits over 6 years. 2 years ago, the Huns invaded, and the war was in a stalemate. Wei Zhao took a desperate gamble, personally leading 500 elite soldiers in a night raid on the enemy camp. He slew the Hun leader, routed the main enemy force, and turned the tide of the war, but to his utter shock, someone in the army betrayed them. Colluding with the Huns to set an ambush, I watched with my own eyes as brothers, with whom I had faced life and death, died one by one before me, just to protect my escape. Every time I close my eyes, their horrific deaths replay in my mind. Ajiang leaned gently against my shoulder, the dampness soaking through my clothes, scalding my skin. "My love, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to keep this from you. This matter involves far-reaching implications. The traitor is backed by complex forces within the imperial court. After fighting our enemies, we must then turn around and fight our own people. How utterly absurd. This battle leaves no visible bloodshed, until I'm certain of victory. I didn't want to drag you into this. Only by staying by my side can I truly feel at ease now." My heart ached so much it felt like it was about to shatter. I knew he had suffered, but I never realized it was to this extent. Biting back my tears, I thought, forget it. Forget it, I won't even take those 300 taels. I gently held his hand and said firmly, "Ajiang, I've slaughtered chickens, killed ducks, and seen blood. I'm not afraid." The air fell silent for a moment before a muffled laugh came from the crook of my neck. Ajiang spread my fingers and intertwined them with his own. "All right, my wife is the most formidable." Qingju was different from what I had imagined. Here there are mountains and rivers, deserts and Gobi, simple folk and thriving trade. I like it very much. Ajiang took me home. It wasn't a grand mansion with a throng of maids, but a clean and bright courtyard with tall locust trees. After waiting for a while in the main hall, a woman in a strong suit quickly entered from outside. Ajiang called out "Mother," and as I rose from my chair, my hand was grasped by someone. "Good child, you've suffered so much on your journey here." The woman had her long hair tied into a ponytail, looking capable and spirited, with a faint medicinal fragrance wafting from her. Ajiang had told me that his mother was originally a healer, and after marrying his father, she followed him to Qingju. Becoming an army medic, just hearing it made me admire her immensely, my laughter revealing my little tiger teeth as I hesitated before finally calling out Auntie. She seemed slightly surprised but didn't correct me, merely looking at me with such kindness that I felt an overwhelming sense of warmth. During the meal, she kept putting food in my bowl. These are all Qingju specialties. Try them quickly and see if you like them. You've suffered so much during this time. Look how thin you've become. I froze for a moment, instinctively pinching the soft flesh at my waist. Indeed, there's a special kind of thinness that exists only in elders' eyes. I set down my chopsticks, took the water Ajiang handed me, and sipped slowly as I listened to them discuss serious matters. Aunt's expression grew much graver, her voice filled with concern. Ever since your accident, your father has set off to return to the capital, now that His Majesty is seriously ill. The Crown Prince is young, and the Left Chancellor's faction is watching like a tiger eyeing its prey. The court is seething with undercurrents. I fear a tough battle lies ahead. Ajiang lowered his eyes. Then we fight. I'll pull out every thorn they've planted in the military, one by one, and return them to their senders. Good. Aunt nodded, then grasped my hand again. As long as our family stands together, there's no battle we can't win. My room was next to Ajiang's. Bright and airy with a large window that framed the full, round moon, the room had been carefully arranged, every detail reflecting the thoughtfulness with which I was welcomed. I lay on the soft, spacious bed, thinking how wonderful it was that I truly didn't need those 300 taels anymore. A rustling sound reached my ears, and when I turned my head, Ajiang was climbing in through the window. What are you here for? Ajiang pounced on me like an eager puppy, wrapping his arms around me and nuzzling his sticky cheeks against mine. Darling, I can't sleep without you close to me. I reached out and pushed him, but he didn't budge. Your aunt will find out if you do this. My mother knows my character. She won't care about these things. Anyway, I'm going to sleep with my wife. I was speechless, but I acquiesced. Sigh, I'll just spoil him. Ajiang grew bolder, wrapping his arms around my waist and holding me tightly. His large hand gently stroking my long hair. After hesitating for a long time, I said, Ajiang, I want to study medicine. With my mother. I thought he would ask me why, but Ajiang just smiled at me and said, all right, my wife can do whatever she wishes. The next day, Ajiang brought up the matter. I'm strong, willing to work hard, and know many herbs. I'm sure I can learn well. Auntie looked at me with pleasant surprise. Without asking if I feared hardship or exhaustion, she nodded in agreement without hesitation. The infirmary housed soldiers wounded in the war. Some had lost arms, others limped on injured legs, their bodies swathed in bandages stained with blood, yet their faces showed no trace of suffering's despair, only the joy of victory and an indomitable, thriving spirit. An old veteran leaning on his crutch proudly recounted his exploits, claiming to have slain 100 enemies until his blade was notched from battle. The one-eyed man beside me took a sip of medicine and vividly recounted how he had burned down the enemy's granary. Amid the laughter and chatter, young soldiers sang folk songs from their hometowns in slang. Suddenly, I remembered the bustling yet peaceful streets of the city, and the people living contented lives. So that was the source of their pride. The infirmary also housed women and children, some who had lost husbands and fathers, yet here they had become family to one another. The aunties chatted and laughed while cooking meals and brewing medicine, as children ran about wielding wooden peach swords. When we entered, the crowd greeted us with cheerful shouts of Dr. Lin. Lin was the surname of Ajiang's mother. My aunt took my hand. This is Yun Ya. She'll be studying medicine with me from now on. And she's Ajiang's fiancé. Everyone cheered and teased, and some bolder aunties even came forward to pull me into a circle, examining me. Oh my, she looks like a blessed and good child. I gradually became busy. Every night, Ajiang would climb through the window to cuddle with me. After massaging my shoulders and legs, he'd apply cooling ointment to my sunburned, flushed face. Tired, exhausted, I nodded, but I've never been this happy and content before. I've learned many new characters and can already read prescriptions to prepare medicine. I've finished studying 2 medical books, and I know a bit about acupuncture too. My hands don't even shake anymore when I'm scraping bones or changing dressings for patients. I've become so brave now. I can treat simple headaches and fevers all by myself. When Auntie Chin, who cooks for us, had dizziness and nausea, I treated her and she recovered quickly. Now she keeps calling me Dr. Yoon with every sentence. I looked up at him from the crook of his arm, my eyes shining brightly. Ajiang, I love this kind of life. Ajiang stared at me blankly for a long time, then lowered his head and gently kissed my forehead. I know, my wife is the most amazing. Days passed one by one. The traitors in the army were ferreted out one by Ajiang. The mastermind behind them was identified, and they were escorted to the capital for trial. The fire raced along the fuse until it reached the left minister. Letters from the capital arrived frequently, and the situation improved day by day, though I couldn't understand the court politics described in the letters. Seeing the increasingly bright smiles on everyone's faces made me happy too. I also cleared a medicinal herb field on the back mountain and began experimenting with growing my own herbs. When the first batch of tender sprouts broke through the soil, I joyfully ran home to share the news, only to encounter unfamiliar faces in the residence. Aunt Chin said there were guests at the manor. It's the newly appointed magistrate of Rome County, here to pay respects to the Marquis. Since his lordship isn't in, the madam is receiving him. I nodded and continued walking inside. Aunt Chin was still gossiping. Let me tell you, this magistrate is young and handsome and still unmarried too. Oh no, that's not right, Aunt Chin frowned. I heard he has a fiancée who went missing recently. He transferred all the candy into his mouth. Don't climb so high again, understand? Little Fatty sniffled and nodded. Got it, Sister Yoon. The usually chattering page Yuan suddenly fell silent. Yoon Wye, you're different from before, right? I proudly put my hands on my hips. I also think I'm super awesome now. His eyes dimmed. Page Ian, I said earnestly. I was originally a free bird. Now there's a vaster world waiting for me to become a soaring eagle. How could I be trapped in a four-sided courtyard, becoming a lifeless canary? You know I can't turn back now. Pei Jian hung his head, not daring to look at me again. Then what if I said I'm willing to wait for you forever? TCH. I turned my head and saw Ajiang standing not far away with his arms crossed. His eyes narrowed as he glared at Pei Jian with hostility. Magistrate Pei, newly appointed to office, neglects his official duties and abandons the people. Yet here he is harassing my wife without reason. Such behavior would be punishable by military law in the barracks. Ajiang walked over and gently pulled me into his embrace. Wife, are you tired, hungry? Should we have roast goose for dinner tonight? He spoke while pulling me along toward home. Behind us, Pei Jian spoke up coldly. Does the young Marquis know that Yoon Wye once saved my life? I promised to marry her. By acting this way, are you not stealing another's beloved? Ajiang scoffed again. A life-saving favor. Who hasn't done that? My lady even spent 20 taels of silver to buy me. Did she ever spend any on you? I've been calling her my lady since the first time we met. And you, go find somewhere cool to stay. Or else you won't be keeping your magistrate position either. An ungrateful wretch like you isn't worthy of speaking about love here. Pei Jian fell completely silent. 23. After that, Pei Jian often appeared around me, but never again pestered me with foolish words. Good news arrived from the capital. His Majesty had recovered, and the left Prime Minister's faction was thoroughly investigated, with some homes raided and others exiled. The Marquis was also already on his way back to Qingju. The following spring, Ajiang and I were married. The pearl he traded for with the fox fur was set into my phoenix coronet, and it truly was beautiful. All of Qingju celebrated, and the aunties from the camp helped me with my makeup and sent me off to my wedding. I lost my father at 8 and my mother at 9, but now, I have many, many loved ones. On the wedding day, Ajiang even sent someone specifically to keep an eye on Pei Jian. I laughed at his childishness. But he stubbornly held me tight, saying that not the slightest mishap could be allowed on our joyous occasion. Fortunately, Pei Jian did nothing. The attendant watching him said he stood outside the door the entire day and left in silence the next morning. I think he must have let go. Another year passed, and my medical skills had improved significantly. I could now practice independently, and the medicinal herb fields on the mountain had expanded several times over. With the herbs thriving beautifully, one day on my way home, I was stopped by someone who looked somewhat familiar. It took me a moment to realize it was Pei Jian's mother. She looked much older, her eyes no longer holding the arrogance they once did. Miss Yoon, I've come this time to offer you my sincerest apologies. In the past, I wronged you, mistaking a pearl for a fish's eye. But none of this was Yang's fault. Could you possibly? No, I cut her off. Pei Jian is a good official.
He's done many practical things for the people of Roane County these past 2 years, but that's all there is to it. I pushed aside my cloak, revealing my slightly swollen belly. Madam Pay, I am already married. Madam Pay froze. Then, after a long moment, she covered her pale face and laughed bitterly. What a mess I've made for myself. That evening, Pei Jian came to my door to apologize, saying he didn't know his mother had come to see me without his knowledge. I didn't take the matter to heart, but looking at Pei Jian before me, I was still startled. He had lost a lot of weight, his cheeks were sunken, and there were heavy dark circles under his eyes, which were filled with numbness. I sighed softly and said, Magistrate Pei, please take good care of yourself. I'll write you a prescription. Take it home and drink it. Pei Jian's hollow eyes flickered, and after a long silence, he finally nodded. Okay. I heard that Pei Jian's mother came every year, and each time she urged him to marry, but he never listened. Later, when Pei Jian's mother fell seriously ill, he finally relented, though he only adopted a pair of parentless children from the camp. The boy was named Pei Yun, and the girl was named Pei Xia. When Ajiang heard about this, he nearly stormed over to Pei Jian's place to give him a beating. After that, every night, Ajiang would cling to me in bed, refusing to let go. My dear, let's have many children. I've already thought of names for them. Xiangya, Nyanya, Yia, Panya. That'll spite that Pei fellow to death. I was so exhausted I could barely keep my eyes open. Lifting my hand, I slapped him across the face. If you're sick, go get treated. Ajiang seemed to enjoy the slap, pressing his face closer to mine again, planting random kisses all over. My love, your eyes must hold only me. Sunlight streamed through the window cracks as I nestled in Ajiang's arms and drifted into deep sleep. Only you. The end.